Thank you, Professor Dewell. Now, let me get my clicker here. Now, I am going to be talking to you about the importance of accessing medicines. The medicine's not for me, it's for my son. And believe it or not, a happy coincidence, I am actually a professional speaker. But when I gave my 685th talk downstairs in the last 11 years for the Care Roadshow. I normally talk mental well-being, empowerment, that type of thing. But when I was asked to give this talk, and you're going to have to bear with me, the emotion that moved through me, and the nervousness that moved through me, even though I've been on stage hundreds of times, really was powerful. Because I know that you guys know the importance of the access to medication for people like my son Fraser, for conditions like cystic fibrosis. I know you know that, but hopefully my intention is to put some meat on the bone in terms of what that actually means to families like mine. Is that okay, guys? I'm just making sure they're awake, Professor Dewell. Is that okay, guys? Fantastic. Now, there he is, Fraser James Harris. And I actually I had a conversation at the Blood Spot conference as well. And 3 weeks and 1 day had gone by. This photo was taken when Fraser was exactly 3 weeks old. And I'll never forget, I was sat on the sofa, we lived in Thornhill at the time, sat on our sofa there, and I said to my now fiancée, Katie, Fraser's mum, I said, "Oh, remember that heel prick test thing? They said if you don't hear anything for 3 weeks, everything's fine." We thought, great. The next day, we received a phone call that Fraser suspected of cystic fibrosis. So we went in for the sweat test, and Fraser did indeed have cystic fibrosis. Now, for those of you that are parents, it's a very challenging, scary time anyway. And Fraser, we connected the dots now, but at the time, Fraser wasn't putting on any weight. When the health visitor was coming, he was on the second centile in terms of weight, and we just didn't know why. He was having oily poos. We didn't know why. Perhaps they were just normal. We're new parents. We don't know. But then we started to connect the dots. And that's where this topic of accessing medication and the importance of it really, the rubber really starts to hit the road. Because obviously when you hear the word cystic fibrosis, crazily when I did my A-level biology, genetic conditions was the topic of the year, so I had a little bit of a understanding. My fiancée, not so much. She was absolutely terrified just by the two words and not knowing what it would mean. So when we started to learn a little bit about what it meant from amazing people like Professor Dewell and the cystic fibrosis team at University Hospital Wales, we realized that there was probably going to be quite a lot of medication required. The main one of which that was sort of on topic was Creon. Now, Creon, I'm sure most of you know, Creon allowed Fraser to actually absorb fat and start to put on weight. And it became a little bit of a celebration. Every time we went to see Professor Dewell and the team, he's on the 4th centile. He's on the 5th centile. He's on the 12th centile. I got goosebumps as I say this. He's on the 50th centile. And he just kept going. He's on the 80th centile. And I'll never forget, we got to the 95th centile and Professor Dewell said, that'll do now. That'll do, it's working. But again, without access, and I'm going to go into some of the other medications as well, without that immediate, efficient access to the medication, we wouldn't have had those moments of celebration. And I'm a little bit of a researcher, right? So I look back on the journey of cystic fibrosis. So back then, I think it was like around 1960, I think the life expectancy was around 2, okay? So without this access to medication, then we would have been dealing with something very, very different. So then, of course, and Professor Dewell and the team were very good, and I didn't realize at the time what they were doing, almost drip feeding. Okay, so he's going to have to take a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and the flucloxacillin as a preventative antibiotic, and a little bit of this. But we were absorbing it in such a way that was very seamless. It was almost like we were living, especially as first parents, it was like we were living with a child that didn't have any other condition. It was a little bit of bottle, a little bit of flucloxacillin, but a little bit of the Creon capsule on the apple baby food, all fine. So then what happened was we had the confidence to take Fraser on holiday. And we realized very, very quickly that he loved the sun. And we had the note from Professor Dool and his team, and that's when we started to realize, because you have to have the note to go through and travel with all of the different medications you're traveling with. We're like, my goodness me, it's quite a lot, isn't it? But it was beautiful because it was even then where I started to feel a level of gratitude for having access to these medications so early, so efficiently. I've got friends that live across the Atlantic in America, friends and colleagues, and they perhaps when they come across these challenges, they're met with walls of things being totally unaffordable, an absolute lack of access. So I really started to feel this gratitude. We were out there in Benalmádena in Spain, and we had all the medication laid out. We were still getting used to it, but I was just overwhelmed with gratitude that we could be on holiday after that maximum moment of fear at 3 weeks and 1 day. So as Fraser's physical health was thriving, okay, as I said, he was jumping up the centiles. He's only 4 months old there. No, I'm joking. This is Fraser when he was 2. And we started to really, my expertise, my academic life and my work was all about the mental health. So I thought, why not combine the two? So this is Fraser doing what he calls his power moves. Take a look at this.
I am strong.
Say, I am powerful.
I am powerful.
Say, I am healthy.
I am healthy.
I am beautiful.
I am beautiful.
I love me.
I love me.
Good boy. Say yes.
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes.
Good boy. Let's have a great day.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. So, again, that has been really powerful, and I was thinking about this really deeply. Sometimes I'm a little bit biased, so yeah, these affirmations, these power moves, they're having a great effect. However, when I was preparing for this conversation today, without that swift, efficient access to the appropriate medicines, this type of mental well-being development would have been futile. So I'm really hoping, as I just share this short story with you, the power and the importance of the access to medications like Fraser required. And he really did start to turn into our real-life superhero. And he fell in love with the idea of being a superhero. Captain America, Iron Man, Superman, Batman. And that's when we come across a really powerful idea. The medications that, as I said, were many that Fraser was taking, they were fuel for him as a superhero. And that became really, really powerful because he started to enjoy the taking of what he called his rockets. We called his medication his rockets. Now, if any of you have ever tasted flucloxacillin, then getting him to enjoy it was quite the feat. But that went a little bit further then. When the team suggested the earlier that we get Fraser on capsules, on tablets, the better. So then, of course, the same sort of logic followed. These tablets, Fraser, will give you even more power. And I had looked at YouTubes on how to get 4-year-olds to take tablets and that type of thing, but I thought, let me just give this a whirl. And he took the Creon, 2 at once, swallowed them straight down, because of this superhero mentality. But again, the foundation of that superhero mentality goes all the way back to that swift, efficient access to the medication he required. So then, with this medication having such great effect, and Fraser jumping up the centiles and fighting off infections and all the great things that we would hope for in the treatment of cystic fibrosis, we started to engage with some of the things that we could do. So there was football, there was running around, and he loves dressing up sharp as well. Look at that. Much sharper than his dad, right? Now, there was also golf, which was fascinating because I'm a massive golf fan, and he saw me out the garden, and he said, "Oh, Daddy, I'd like to have a go." So we got my little club, and this was his first little effort here. Here we go.
Yeah.
So you probably hear I'm quite excited by that there. Okay. Now, again, this physical activity was underpinned, so as time was moving on, we came across Orkambi, and we were celebrating all the celebrations associated with that. We had access to Orkambi very, very swiftly. Then Kaftrio, the proclaimed miracle drug, which is proven to be true. I mean, when Fraser would first have a cold that most of us would fight off in 2 or 3 days, Fraser would have that cold for 10 days, 2 weeks. Since Kaftrio, he fights it off quicker than the rest of us in the house. So this little moment here I did share at the Bloodspot conference that Fraser was loving the outside and golf is a great activity to be out there, breathing the fresh air and that type of thing. However, because he's continued to have so much power, be that superhero, the new medications have had such a great effect, the golf career did progress a little bit. Take a look at this from BBC. We've been proud of him, since day one. I mean, he's always had an amazing positive mindset. And then golf is just like the cherry on the cake. Oh, baby. What it does, it affects the salt channels, so it can actually then produce really thick mucus, both in the lungs usually, and then throughout all the other organs in the body as well. So he takes 50 tablets a day.
I said to Dad, I really want to qualify for the World Championships and be major pound green and net.
With the cystic fibrosis, we literally didn't leave the house, didn't want to touch anything, didn't know how dangerous the virus could be, so we weren't even going for walks. So it was great for his physical activity. Then as soon as golf courses were one of the first things to open up, which was great. And then I'll never forget it, took him on the course, and I was just amazed. He was flying it down the fairway, putting it on the green, rolling it in the hole. And it was just a dream to see him out there having fun. Great shot.
This was first place on the British Junior Golf Tour.
And what competition was it that you won?
A Masters, and this one was the Qualified Championship trophy.
So Fraser actually joined the tour after 2 events had already taken place. So it looked like you would literally have to win all 5 events to qualify. And luckily he did. He was diagnosed at 3 weeks old. The amazing things that he does. He's always had an amazing positive mindset. And then golf is just like the cherry on the cake. We're proud of him regardless. But to do everything he does and do the things he's doing in golf as well, it's just so proud from myself, his mum Katie, all his grandparents, everyone. Excited, Fraser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to about it?
Winning it.
So he's doing quite well. Now, of course, and this is where it got really emotional for me, like I was talking about the importance of access to medication. Because of the swift and efficient access that we had, it's meant we've been able to go on and do these things. We haven't had to fight like some of my American friends and raise hundreds of thousands of pounds and worry and fight. Where's the next medication coming from? It's been seamless. So that's how important it is. So my friends, remember, when we've got a Welsh person holding the winning putt at the Ryder Cup, it all started with the access to some of these amazing medications. Kaftrio, Calideco, Creon, ursodeoxycholic acid. Say that with your teeth in, right? Fat-soluble vitamins, pulmozyme, and more. I know I've left some out as well. But it really has made all the difference because we've been able to go out, campaign, raise money for the Cystic Fibrosis Trust, maybe raise money and support and awareness for some people that haven't been as fortunate as Fraser. Because we've had this access, because we've got the medication every month, and when the new medication comes out, he gets that as well. We've been able to go out and support other people. Fraser's been able to be a very involved big brother to Vienna. And again, you know, the superhero nature of him means that he takes his tablets, does his mask, does everything he's got to do, but then also is an inspirational, present big brother as well. And if it wasn't for amazing people like you making sure that we've got access to these medications, then not only we wouldn't have such a happy, functional family, but Fraser wouldn't be doing the things globally, putting cystic fibrosis and indeed Wales on the map. So I really hope I've given you an insight into the importance of access to medications for people like Fraser, and it's just been an absolute privilege to be invited here to be the person to share that message. So thank you very much.
Jermaine, since he's happy to take it.
No, the question was, is my daughter Vienna got it as well? We went through genetic testing, and then a certain amount through the pregnancy, then they test the embryo, and Vienna wasn't even a carrier, so it's just the genetic lottery. Thank you.
Hi, Jermaine. Just wanted to ask, does Fraser need a caddy?
Position's already been filled by me, unfortunately.
So I was just going to suggest that you might want to go on CAF Trio, because that's the only way you're going to get good at golf, isn't it? You need to switch it on, yes.
I've turned it on now. I just want to say thank you, actually, because I was actually an AWMSG member who actually looked at ivacaftor at the very, very beginning. I remember sitting there as a committee member, angsting over this very, very expensive drug. And actually what you have brought home is the fact that those decision-making has an individual at the end of that. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Room that day ivacaftor was considered, and then after that we changed our process, so we changed how clinicians and patients fed into the appraisal process, and so it was really moving being in the room with patients telling the story of ivacaftor, and especially seeing Fraser's story. But they were saying to us, well, what matters actually is we're off the transplant list, we don't need a lung transplant now, and patients came into the room and told us what difference these drugs were making. So it was really brilliant that after that ivacaftor meeting, we then changed our process, and we looked at actually really finding out what was important to patients. So it's amazing to actually hear the person's story, having been there at AWMSG, seen it gone through, to hear the impact it's making. So really thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?